You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
The Trek Files, Season 9, Episode 4, Gene Coon Star Trek Memo, March 16th, 1967.
Welcome to The Trek Files, a look into the archives of Roddenberry Entertainment from the personal files of Gene Roddenberry. And now your host, Dr. Trek, Larry Nemecek.
Welcome back, Trek fans, all you Trek historians. Can I just giggle here a little bit? We are doing this live. We're recording this live at Star Trek Las Vegas this year. I've wanted to do this for so long, and to be able to see, yes, my producer John Champion, and seeing our lovely voice every week, Jessica Linverdi, doing this live, it's just awesome. It's like old-time radio. But we need to get to Star Trek, because I'm so thrilled to have back a guest. If you heard our previous episode, we're here live. We're talking about Gene Coon. You can see the documents this week that we're going to be dealing with right there on our Facebook page, as usual, facebook.com/thetrekfiles. Yes, we are talking more about Gene Coon because we have a witness to the Star Trek's other Gene, and she would say he was Star Trek's main Gene, maybe, at least to her. Look, we've got another audio sample of the docs of the week, so take a look at those. Here's a sample. But you want to be right back with me and this week's special returning guest.
Desilu shall have an option with respect to Gene's services as producer in connection with succeeding years of productions of the series, with all the terms and conditions the same, except that the total fee payable to Gene Coon will be increased by $250 per week more than the previous contract year. For example, first option term, if exercised by Desilu, will require a payment of $2,500 per week. The next option year is at $2,750 per week, etc.
Well, there you go, Trekophiles. Were you ready for a little dip into 1967? Yeah, the Writers Guild's changed. The scale, the minimums have changed a little bit since then. Writing Star Trek has. You know, in those days, it was the Genes, Gene Roddenberry and his number one showrunner at the time, and freelance marketers coming in. And then we get to the days of the Berman era, and you've got 6 or 8 on staff, and still some freelance. And now we have 47 co-producer writers and 10 slots for episodes. So there's not really a lot of need for freelancers. So the job of the TV industry has changed and evolved over the years, but there are some core samples, core bits to the industry. You got to know how to write, and you got to know how to run people and run a show. And these documents this week are, well, they tell some of Gene Coon's story in an interesting way. And who else better to be here to talk with me about this than an eyewitness to the years Gene Coon spent on Star Trek, and even later on, is my good friend and now author, Gene Coon's executive secretary, and so much more in her life, Ande.
Yes, darling.
Ande Richardson Kindryd is the full name now. I'm so glad to have you back on the show, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, dear, I'm here.
I know. Well, we just got rolling the last time you were with us talking about Gene. I mean, there's so many aspects. There's his writing talent, some of the episodes, the memories of working there and some of the people there at the offices, but then his life. And what happened with his life, and he kept you with him as long as he was really working in the business. But just these 2 documents here, we've got all the details of his deal, because he's number 2 to Gene, to the Great Bird, as you call Gene Roddenberry. And then we've got the second year where they're going into, he's left the show, and I want to talk about that, but he's left the show, and he's writing under his pseudonym, Lee Cronin.
Yeah.
And he's got an order for, now he only wound up doing 2 of these, if people can trace the names, but he had an order for 6 shows. They wanted him to keep writing.
Of course, he brought such humanity to the episodes that he wrote. That they like, and humor. And things, just think about. So many of the things he wrote are still valid today. Mm-hmm. And if they were being shown today, they wouldn't be out of place.
Right. Well, private little war of Vietnam and getting involved in things. But just starting off the gate, we mentioned he came to the series with Miri. He was rewriting. But when he got a chance to start writing, the Horta in Arena, right, which starts off with what? Janos Prohaskis.
The Horta is not in Arena. That's the Gorn.
Oh, yes, thank you, ma'am. That was a test. That was the test.
Yeah.
Devil in the Dark, I believe I've read that was the name of the Horda show. Because I was thinking of Janos Prohaskis.
Yes.
And the Gorn, of course, was the outfit too. But
that was Wachang.
Yes, another great uncredited person who we're trying to get the word out about.
Yes.
But
and I talk about both of those guys in my book.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And I'm so you had an excerpt here this weekend at the convention, which was just for the convention, which is hopefully going to sell out. Your big main book is coming that includes that and more.
Yes. Yep.
Later in what? When is it coming?
November.
All right. But Star Trek is just a part of your life, but it's such a. I mean, what do you think about those years when you look back and working with Gene?
Well, you were talking about Gene and salaries. My story about Gene and salaries was my salary.
Okay.
And I couldn't really afford to keep working there. My kids were starting to complain that we ate beans so often and they didn't have any meat in them, and I'd have to remind them that we got onions in them. And so I said to Gene, I think I'm going to need more money. And he said, well, that's not my department. Okay. So I looked around and I found, because I knew so many people by then from the script departments, I found a job working on another show. Unfortunately, the pay was the same, and that was less standard. So I went back to Gene and said, yeah, well, they wanted to hire me, but, it wasn't paying any more than the year, so I guess I'll just stay. And he came back to me a day or so later and said, you'll notice your check, you'll have overtime. You'll be working overtime. And I went, I got kids, I can't work overtime every day. He said, no, you don't have to work it, but you'll be paid it. So he worked out a way that I could keep the same old boring salary, but I had a guaranteed weekly amount of overtime hours that I would be paid whether I worked them or not.
And that was Gene's doing.
See,
that's another
aspect. That's the kind of guy he is.
That's what I'm going to say. The humanity that he's bringing to the writing. We were talking about his voice. His litany of scripts is there.
And fast.
So how was he able to do it so fast?
Well, we had this friendly doctor that I like to call Dr. Happy, because he gave out happy pills to anybody who wanted them.
You mentioned that, but here's the thing. We think of, pills and amphetamines and drug abusers and drug addicts, but it was really like truck drivers with their stay-away pills, right?
That's all it was.
Yeah.
He didn't indulge in anything other than matcha tea. He loved his yogurt tea, and Slivovitz. An occasional Slivovitz, not even an everyday Slivovitz, but he liked Slivovitz in the evening after the day was done. I drink a tab, he drink a Slivovitz. He enjoyed his more than I enjoyed mine.
But no, the story of turning around the arena script with the Gorn in 6 days, or the Horda script?
The Horda script.
Yeah, the Devil in the Dark script.
That went so fast. A normal script was 6 weeks. You couldn't expect anything under 6 weeks, but Gene did it.
And inspired
by Dr. Happy's contribution to our event. And Dr. Happy also made sure that by his contribution, I stayed very slim and moved very fast.
Well, when I said inspired by, I was also thinking about Janos Prohaskis coming in and auditioning his little creation.
Yeah, I didn't go that day. Gene went out. I stayed in the office because I wasn't getting too close to Janos. I didn't know what kind of animal or creature he would be. And if he was in ape costume, he was dangerous to be around because he just took on all the mannerisms and became that, and including, never mind, I won't say the horniness of it all.
So we're talking about the actor, gymnast, creature maker who created the Horda, kind of auditioned it.
Yep,
right? Can
absolutely.
you find a story for this? Sure. And the Mugato, you were talking about the ape, the horny ape, which has been picked up again now recently on Lower Decks even. But it sounded like you guys had a great work. Did he have to? And there's a lot of politics going on in any studio. Star Trek was a crazy show to work on. Lots of people were spending a lot of hours. Did he shield you from a lot of that, or do you remember some of the dramas going by?
I remember some of the dramas about who was getting how many lines in what script. That's all.
Did you actually have to type? They had script typists for that, right? You were just taking care of Gene's office?
I'd send it out to a typing service.
Right.
and they would send us back a white copy, and then the next revisions would be blue, and then pink, then yellow, and then you knew you were really in trouble if you went any further than that.
On the color wheel for the change pages. Let's talk about all these incredible stories coming by, tribbles. Do any of the episodes, again, you're not on the stages, did you feel like safely insulated from a lot of that, or did a lot of it spill over to you, like as you saw the changes and things you had to deal with?
The scripts came to me first.
Yeah.
They were delivered to me, I signed for them, and then I distributed to whoever needed whatever it was that I got.
Right.
So I read everything before Gene read it.
Well, Gene's there for the end of the first season.
Yeah.
Infamously, Harlan writing City on the Edge of Forever all year long.
Oh, Harlan. Oh, my darling Harlan.
I'll come back to Harlan, but what I'm trying to remember, so you had the hiatus break. They wondered if the show would be renewed. It did get renewed with a little bit of push. So we're back for the second season. Your boss, Gene Coon's on the ground running. And then by the middle of that year, 2/3 of the way through the year, he decides to leave. And people say all kinds of things about why Gene left. You were there. Even to the point was he and The Great Bird, the two Genes, disagreed on how much humor to bring to the scripts.
Yeah.
Is there any truth to that, or?
Not really.
That's kind of what I think.
mean, Gene Roddenberry, The Great Bird of Galaxy, he saw it more seriously. But Gene had been a Marine. He'd served with Chesty Puller, the Grand Marine of all Marines. And Chesty Puller would say something like, when they were being attacked by the Chinese who had joined the North Koreans and they were under siege and totally surrounded, he told his men,
Chosun Reservoir,
yeah,
right?
He said,
Gene Coon
they're
fought
in
at the
front of
Chosun.
us, they're behind us, they're to the left of us, they're to the right of us. That means we can shoot in any direction we want. That kind of humor is what Gene Coon brought. It wasn't slapstick humor. It wasn't ha funny humor.
Right.
It was that kind of humor. It was like of serious people who were making a joke about a situation, or
it came from the characters. It came from the characters. Well, there are those who say they fought. But it's basically he was exhausted, right?
When he left, yes. Okay, so he's got the network calling, saying, "Oh, do more of this." He had no budget to do it.
Right.
And then he's got the writers getting angry with him because they've had to go to arbitration because he had to rewrite the script because they didn't get it right.
And Paramount's bought out Desilu about then, and they're cutting the budgets even more.
And Herb Solo is getting more toward the company because he has to, because with the new management, he couldn't be our close friend any longer. So it was just a lot of stuff happening, and Gene, he got rid of his old Land Cruiser, his old whatever it was that he used to take the dogs to the shop in, and bought an XKE, and I knew there was something wrong.
Right. Well, how did he tell you? How did you find out that he was leaving the show? Do you remember?
I didn't find out till he was leaving, until he came and said to me, "I'm going to leave, and I want you with me. Will you come and join me where I go?" I'm like, okay.
Which wound up being Universal after a little bit of a timing break.
Yeah.
When you even had you worked a few days for even Fred Freiberger, you said.
A few days. I worked with John Meredith Lucas while he was there.
At the end of the second season.
Yeah, to that. And then when Freddie came in and he was going to take over, I thought, let me get out of here and let him, start with somebody he's going to be with him. So I left, and then Gene called me and said, "Come on over."
And It Takes a Thief?
It Takes a Thief.
Yeah. Robert Wagner's series? Yes, for a while. Well, I just want to, and then sadly, one of the stresses on him that we didn't realize then, he was a constant smoker, right? And
he had those little cigar things.
Yeah. And then he was gone, diagnosed, and then
He
gone.
called me on Wednesday, said, "I think I've got pneumonia. I'm going to the hospital and get this checked out." On Friday, he called me back and said, "It's not pneumonia, it's cancer." And on Sunday, his wife called me and said he's gone.
Yeah.
He didn't play around.
He missed all this, though.
He didn't
missed
play
all
around.
of this.
He had cancer. He got the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
His father had lingered. He wasn't going to do that. And yes, he missed all this. Although I
All
don't
the
know
Star Trek,
how thrilled he would have been with all the things that he would have to do, because he just wanted to do his job. He just wanted to get those scripts written. He just wanted to make a good show.
Well, for all the people that think he ended on a bad note with Gene, I just point out our document of the week where he has an order for 6 scripts.
That's right.
Under his Lee Cronin pseudonym, which
Yep.
I love a world where you can still think you can get away with that. He had an exclusive at Universal and wanted to hide the fact that he was still writing for Star Trek.
Yep.
Anyway, wow. Andy, we could talk all day. Maybe sometime we can have you back.
I'm too old for that.
Now,
Dad.
we'll break it up.
Thank you.
But thank you so much. And most of all, I am so glad your book is coming out, that you've got all of this, all the aspects of your amazing life, which included, folks, we didn't even touch on your years in the civil rights circle here in L.A. A circle that included people. Who did you know?
I worked with Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, Maulana Karenga. Oh, that's enough.
And a lot of heartache there as people were trying to make change.
Yeah. I mean, too many people that I love got assassinated. And I think my last was Robert F. Kennedy when I went to work at Universal, and my license plate was RFK 605, and the man died on 605.
This is exactly where we're waiting for your book. Andy, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you we finally found this time to have you on the Trek Files.
Thanks, Doc.
You're sweet. The Trek Files is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Yes, right here, live from Star Trek Las Vegas this week. All of our documents and your chance to comment, of course, are available at facebook.com/The Trek Files. Now, for more deep diving of Star Trek behind the scenes, visit Dr. Trek and Portal 47. Yes, that's me, at LarryNemecek.com. And that's where you can also link in for all the new Trek Files swag and shirts at our TeePublic shop, too. Hey, everyone, Trek well.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.